Getting married? Then live with me and take care of me. That's the eldest daughter's job, right? My mother said this completely selfish thing. Up until now, I had always been burdened with household chores and childcare. It seems he plans to continue to burden me with these even after marriage. I nodded and said, okay. Okay, let's live together. And I will thoroughly make him understand all the hardships I've gone through. He better regret it. Thinking this, I smirked. My name is Emma. I am 28 years old and work at a company. I was just recently proposed to by my boyfriend of 3 years, Billy. I was very happy and felt blessed, but I put off my answer. It's not that there's anything bad about Billy. He is kind and considerate, has a sense of humor, and being with him is just fun. He is too good a person for me. Why then do I hesitate to marry such a wonderful person? There is a deep reason for this. To explain the reason, I need to trace back my memories. Memories from my childhood. I was born into a typical salaried worker's family. My father was calm and gentle. My mother was not good at housework, but was an ordinary housewife. I had an older brother 2 years my senior and a younger sister 2 years my junior. It was peaceful days. Everything changed after my brother, 5 years my junior, was born. Soon after his birth, my father passed away. Fortunately, my father had a large life insurance policy, so we were not troubled by money. I remember my mother casually mentioning that the amount was enough to continue our peaceful days as long as we didn't splurge. If my mother had worked part-time then, perhaps the future would have been different. But my mother, who had always been a housewife, did not work. Furthermore, it was as if the reins were off after my father's death. And she even abandoned household chores. The house became a mess. Despite not doing household chores, my mother disliked the house being messy and chose to make her child, me, do it. At that time, my sister and brother were still young. But I had just started elementary school. Yet, my mother would say, a child who is free should do housework, and made me clean. She also pushed the care of my young brother onto me. A demanding brother, not yet 2 years old. No way could a child who had just started elementary school take care of him. I could barely go to school, but as soon as I returned home, I was immediately set to cleaning and shopping, and taking care of my brother. I also did the cooking, peeling vegetables while cutting my fingers, getting burned while stir-frying. Of course, in the beginning, nothing I made turned out well. Cleaning only made things messier, and my brother cried all the time. The food I cooked was inedible. Then my mother's scolding would immediately follow. You're useless. Why can't you do anything right? Your brother is smart and does well in his studies. And your sister has a cute face and is popular. Only you are ordinary and have no redeeming qualities. Can't you at least do household chores properly? Indeed, my brother did well in his studies even without attending cram school. My sister had a very cute face, unlike my ordinary one. But why am I, also a daughter of the same mother, the only one burdened with housework and childcare while my siblings are exempted? Why am I the only one strictly scolded for my mistakes, when even my own mother can't do much? Now that I am an adult, I understand how abnormal the situation was at that time. But as a child, I didn't understand. Being called a failure and ugly, I felt down, thinking I was a useless child. Every time I saw my siblings being loved by my mother, I tried harder, hoping to be loved myself. I worked hard at household chores and childcare, but my mother never praised me once. When my brother passed the middle school entrance exams on his own, my mother celebrated by taking him to a fancy restaurant. But the only ones who went were my brother and sister. My brother, not yet in elementary school, and I were left at home. Useless and a nuisance, stay home, my mother told us. And I cried at home eating bread while taking care of my brother. When my sister was scouted as a model, my mother was over the moon, hugging my sister and saying, "That's my daughter." Watching this, I was glared at irrationally. "Are you really my daughter?" she said to me. My mother adored my brother and sister. She denied the existence of me and my brother. Denied us and pushed household chores and childcare onto us. If something good happened, it was because of my mother. If something bad happened, it was my fault. I was allowed to attend school, but I was never allowed to participate in school events like field trips. "You're supposed to do the housework, aren't you? You can't just slack off." That's what she said. I had no happy childhood memories. No memories of playing with friends after school. I grew up in such an environment, and before I knew it, I had been made to do household chores until I graduated high school. My brother and sister always seemed apologetic towards me. Of course, they tried to help. But when my siblings offered to help, my mother would scream at them furiously. "It's because you're incompetent that you're bothering your siblings. Your brother is studying to enter a prestigious company. Your sister is going to be a celebrity in the future. Don't interfere." Whenever we tried to do something, my mother would blame me. Understanding this, my siblings eventually chose to say nothing. One night, as we lay sleeping, my sister, crying next to me, said, "Sorry, big sister." I hugged her tightly, and we both cried. We were just kids, really just kids. Even when I reached the age to understand the abnormality of my parents, I continued to work hard on household chores for my precious siblings. I was provided with food and shelter and was able to attend school. I thought if I endured, that was enough, and so I endured day after day. As time passed, my brother joined a top company as my mother wished and moved out. He seems to be sending money home from his salary every month. And my mother's lifestyle has improved. She frequently visits hair salons and spas and has increased her collection of brand name items. But she still does not do any household chores. I got a job after high school. Unable to attend cram school due to all the household chores, I didn't have the brains like my brother to go to university and chose a safe path. It would have been nice if I could have lived alone then, but leaving my sister, still in high school, and my brother, in middle school, was not an option. By that time, my skills in household chores had improved significantly, and I rarely made mistakes. My mother scolded me less, but she still lashed out at me whenever something displeased her. I was finally dressing up to go out, but it started raining and I couldn't. It's because Emma had a gloomy face. Such irrational anger directed at me hasn't changed, then or now. But from that time on, something inside me began to whisper, "Don't think nothing will change. Don't think I'll always be a submissive child who obeys her parents." No matter what was said, I wasn't hurt anymore, and I glared back at my mother, sometimes talking back. My mother is getting older and weaker. On the other hand, I am growing and becoming stronger. Does she think she can be the queen forever? When I glare, my mother seems to quiet down somewhat. But she still does not do any household chores. I continued to do them because my sister and brother would be troubled otherwise. Then my sister got a job and moved out. My brother, although not as adored as my brother or sister, had also graduated from university and gotten a job. When my brother was 22, I was already 27. By then, I was already dating Billy. I had briefly explained my family situation to him. After all, I couldn't go out late at night because I had to prepare dinner. "You really care about your family," Billy would say, but that wasn't it. Yes, I was working hard for my siblings. But I didn't want to be lumped together with the word family. Still, I hesitated to talk about my mother's true nature. After all, if I told him about such an intense mother, Billy might leave me. Call me a coward if you will. For me, who was not loved by my mother, Billy's presence, who loves me, is irreplaceable. I don't want to lose him, I want to be with him forever. I want to be in a normal relationship where we love and are loved. Yet, when he proposed, I hesitated. What is there to hesitate about? That's what I think to myself. My siblings have already moved out. My brother got married last year and started a family. My brother is working hard, saving money. He says he'll move out once he's saved a certain amount, and that's supposed to be soon. If that's the case, I could leave when my brother does. But thinking about that suddenly makes me feel sick. My head hurts. My stomach hurts. I feel nauseous. Ah, I see, I don't want to leave home. I have to stay with my mother. Because I'm a failure, a misfit, unloved by my mother. I have to do the household chores to finally be recognized by my mother. I shouldn't get married. I convinced myself and closed my eyes. All that spread before me was darkness. Darkness that had been spreading since I was a child. I had given up, thinking the darkness would continue. But that's not true. Suddenly, light shone through. I opened my eyes. Before me was Billy, with a gentle smile. Billy? Who said Emma shouldn't get married? Who said you can't be happy? There's no such rule, right? At least, I'll show you happiness. Huh? I will make Emma happy. Trust me, it's okay. But I'm a selfish person, so I'll definitely accomplish what I've said. I'll definitely make you happy. So, please marry me. Talking about my mother was a whim. I wanted to tell him how worthless I was and that I wasn't worthy of him. But Billy's response was unexpectedly gentle. Overwhelmed by his kind gaze, I clung to him and cried. Crying and crying, just crying. Thank you. Please take care of me, I said. That moment, my vision cleared and it became dazzlingly bright. I wanted to marry Billy. I wanted to end my current life. The time of looking down was over. From now on, I decided to look forward. With that resolution, I found myself standing in front of my mother. What? Without taking her eyes off the TV and reaching for a snack with a drink in her hand, my mother asked. Hurry up and make some snacks. That's about all you can do. Mom, I'm getting married. Huh? It was then that my mother finally looked at me. How many days had it been since my mother really looked at me? My mother, who always commanded something, spoke without looking at me. Sitting down, she looked up at me. I, standing, looked down at her as she frowned. Getting married? What about the house? Are you abandoning your brother? I just talked to him, and he said he's moving out when I get married. I see. My mother's expression didn't change as she responded indifferently. So, we're living together. Huh? Getting married? Then live with me and take care of me. That's the eldest daughter's job, right? Saying something utterly selfish. My mother turned her gaze back to the TV as if there was no more to discuss. Not even a single word of congratulations, even though her daughter was getting married. Watching my mother's attitude, various emotions surged within me. And before I knew it, my mouth had automatically said, "Okay. Okay, let's live together." My mother, who had lived a selfish and self-centered life, had kicked my life around. If she wants to live together, fine. But don't think you can live as carefreely as before, right? I watched my mother drinking leisurely and smirked. After that, Billy and I got married. We registered our marriage and took a commemorative photo. We didn't have a ceremony because neither of us wanted one. After registering, Billy immediately moved into our house. Yes, the beginning of our living together. I'm telling you first, don't ever hesitate with my mother. I had said it many times beforehand, but I emphasized it again, and Billy nodded with a smile. Yeah, don't worry. After all, it was your mother who wanted to live together. I'll do as I please. Yeah. Emma, you too, you're my wife now. And this is your home. Do as you like, okay? Saying so, my husband smirked. I nodded and smirked as well. Well, shall we begin? I thought to myself, rolling up my sleeves, unknown to my mother. Day 1 of living together. What's this? Why isn't my breakfast ready? Emma, are you slacking off? Ah, good morning, Mother. We're both leaving soon, so please prepare your own breakfast. Let's go, Emma. Right. Huh? Wait, just a moment. Not preparing my mother's breakfast, something that hadn't happened in decades. My mother was confused by the unusual situation, and I felt somewhat uneasy. It might be confusing at first to stop a habit. But you'll get used to it gradually. I nodded at my husband's words. My mother's confused face earlier was kind of funny. After finishing work and returning home, the house being messy was usual. I glanced at it and went to my room to change and then to the living room. Emma, what was that this morning? You can't even prepare breakfast for your own mother? You really are incompetent. Huh? Can't prepare breakfast? Mom, aren't you the incompetent one? What? My mother probably didn't expect me to talk back. Leaving my stunned mother alone, I briskly cleaned up the messy kitchen and started preparing dinner. When I finished, I carried the food to my room. Huh? Wait, where's my dinner? There isn't any. No. Don't get carried away just because you got married. Who do you think allowed you to grow up to be like this? Whose? Thanks to the inheritance left by Dad, right? What? What? You insolent. I'm home. Just as my mother tried to say something, my husband came home. Welcome back. Dinner's ready. Really? But I'm sweaty, so can I take a bath first? Sure, that's ready too. Huh? Wait a minute, I should go first. Ah, Mother, I'll be taking the bath first. No, wait just a. Ignoring my mother's protest, my husband headed straight to the bath. I returned to my room to lay out dinner. Then my mother started banging on the door. Ignoring her, I prepared and left before my husband came out of the bath, encountering my mother standing there imposingly. What do you mean by this? What do you mean? You don't prepare my meals, you don't clean the house, you let your husband bathe first. What's the point of living together then? That's normal. I'm married now, so I only take care of my husband. I'm no longer obligated to take care of Mom. Are you a demon? Don't you say that. What? I glared back at my mother, who kept blaming me as the bad one, and she lost her words. What about you, who dumped all the housework on a young Emma and goofed around? Aren't you a demon then? I managed to grow up safely thanks to the inheritance Dad left us. We could live off that money. But Mom, you did nothing. Do you think you raised me? Of course. How? You let me do all the housework while you goofed around. You doted only on my brother and sister and ignored me and my brother. You never once attended a school meeting. You never showed any interest in my future, just told me to do the housework. How is that raising? That's, well, sorry, but I don't feel grateful at all. So, from now on, I won't take care of Mom. After declaring that, I walked past my mother. She stood there, unable to say anything. The next day. Day 2 of living together. Emma. Why aren't my clothes washed? Because I didn't do it, so of course they're not washed. But you were running the washing machine yesterday. I did ours, mine and Billy's. Do mine too, I'm your mother. This happens right after I return from work, exhausted, and she's been playing all day. You have free time, so you should do the laundry yourself. I'm training you. Thanks for that. I'm already well trained, so no more is needed from now on. You insolent. Mother, don't you even know how to wash? My husband, who had been listening to our conversation, suddenly spoke up to my flustered mother. Huh? I know how to do that much. If you don't know, I can teach you. Come on, follow me. I'm telling you I know how. Do you really know? First, you open the lid, right? Then you put in the detergent and fabric softener here. I'm telling you, I know. Then you choose the cycle and press this button here. It's turned into a complete joke or treating her like a child. My mother was taken aback by his ignoring all her objections. And my husband kept talking with a grin. Go ahead, try it. I won't do it. That's Emma's job. Just do it. Eek. Suddenly, my husband's tone changed. The smile disappeared from his face, showing anger. Seeing that, my mother let out a small scream. You made a young elementary school Emma do all that, right? Then it should be easy for an adult like you. Just do it. Yes. Intimidated by his forcefulness, my mother ended up doing the laundry herself. It was indeed a scene we hadn't seen in decades. By the way, the amount of detergent my husband had previously put in was quite excessive. And suds were leaking from the washing machine, causing my mother to scream. But we, locked in our room, completely ignored it. The Spartan treatment for my mother continued. What? Cooking? Just do it yourself. I don't care what you want to eat. The old me, who used to do everything my mother said, had become quite strong as a reaction to breaking free from her control. My mother was lost for words at my retorts. Mother, do the cleaning yourself. What is this, underwear? How can you just leave it lying around? Wow, Mother, you've been playing so much yet your wrinkles are increasing day by day. Didn't you play outside too much instead of making Emma do all the housework? Are you even applying sunscreen? Before calling Emma incompetent, you should reflect on your own inability to manage yourself. What is this dish? Is it even edible? Emma's cooking is really delicious. You criticize others but can't see your own flaws. My husband showered my mother with his pointed words. Poke, poke, poke. It was like sitting on a bed of needles. I chuckled wryly, remembering how my mother used to nag me like that every day. And then, a month into our living together passed. Finally, my mother snapped, shouting, "I've had enough." I endured for over 10 years. But her patience is just too lacking. Enough. I've had it. You two as a couple are too much. I can't stand it anymore. Get out right now. Okay, we'll leave. Huh? She probably didn't expect us to agree so readily. Maybe she thought we would beg if she suddenly kicked us out. But that wasn't going to happen. My husband and I quickly packed our bags and headed for the door. Huh? Wait, you're leaving now? What about your things? Oh, this is everything. Everything. We've placed everything else in our new home, so it's fine. What? Yes, my husband and I had actually rented an apartment separate from my family home. We lived at home with the bare minimum, ready to leave at any moment. And now, we were waiting for the get-out command. Less than an hour after being told to leave, my husband and I were out the door. Wait. What will become of me now? I don't know. Didn't you say I should leave, Mom? Well, I've already done more than enough taking care of you, Mom. You never once appreciated it. You always favored my brother and sister and looked down on me. I never felt any love from you. If you tell me to leave, of course I'll gladly go. Anyway, I don't plan to do anything from now on. It seems like you always intended to exploit me. But what's the point of me staying with you if I do nothing? My mother couldn't say anything to my words. See, you're at a loss for words now, which means to you. I was nothing more than a housekeeper. I won't let you interfere with my life anymore. But what about the living expenses? We had been paying for utilities and such while living together. If that stops, it means Mom will have to pay on her own. I don't care about that. Why not pay with Dad's inheritance like before? There's hardly any of that left. You all spent it. Lies. Mom, I know you've been spending a lot on yourself. That's why you forced me to cook budget meals. And I haven't forgotten wearing tattered clothes. Because you rarely bought me any new ones. That's. You've always done whatever you wanted. Maybe it's time you struggled a bit. Saying that, I turned my back on my mother. Wait. Goodbye, Mom. The words I always wanted to say. The words I could never say. I felt relieved that I finally could. I glanced down once, then looked up. My husband was waiting for me with a smile. Without looking back, I ran to my husband, took his hand. And we left my childhood home behind. Afterwards. After squandering my father's inheritance and struggling financially, my mother first contacted my brother. She suggested living together, but he refused, saying, "I can't live with a mother who tries to exploit her children. My current family is what's important to me." Upon learning that the remittances he had been sending were spent on my mother's luxury purchases, my brother declared he would stop them. And apparently, my mother screamed. Then she called my sister, but my sister bluntly cut her off, saying, "Live with Mom? No way, absolutely not. Living with a mother who does nothing around the house? Impossible. I'm busy, so I'm hanging up." Later, my sister called me. "Mom has always exploited you and had fun, what now?" "I'm sorry for always pushing her onto you," she said. Although she was loved by my mother, my sister couldn't forgive her treatment of me. "Let's cut ties with Mom, you should too," she suggested, ending the call. My brother apparently also received a call from her, screaming, "Take care of me," but he hung up without a word and blocked her number. Hearing that, I laughed. In the end, our mother's twisted love was not understood by any of her children. And she was abandoned. My siblings said they were sorry they couldn't do anything, but we were just kids. It's understandable that we didn't have the capacity. Later, my mother had to sell the family home. Apparently, she ran out of money and couldn't sustain her lifestyle. But it was an old house and didn't sell for much. Now she's crying about having to start working part-time, late in life. She's been crying to each of us kids in turn, but none of us are paying attention. After all the freedom she took, it's time for her to experience some hardship. Having learned from my mother's example, I vowed not to let my children suffer. I will give them plenty of love without discrimination. As I stroke my belly, carrying a new life that will soon be born, I think about this.